A lot is going on in the world, and we're always glad to be talking about that here on Pod TV and seeing what things are going on in the world and how things are happening and all in that space. So, definitely a lot is taking place, and we're glad to be talking about that here on the network and seeing
Folks
what
have
folks
got
have got
on
on
their
their
mind.
mind.
Going to bring in none other than Sharif in a minute, see what he's got on his mind as well. So we've got a lot of things happening in the world and everything like that. We actually got double images going on as well. But I'm gonna bring in Sharif as I remove that other image and everything like that. So definitely a lot is taking place, and we're always glad to be talking about that and see what folks have got on their mind as well. So definitely a lot is taking place, and glad to be talking about that here on the network. I know that the Japanese Prime Minister recently won an election and all in that line. And I've got Nick with me as well, so we can see what he's got on his mind. And I also know that we had a lot of people talking about the Super Bowl and everything like that. So how are you doing today, Nick? Having some computer things, but that's all right. We still got things going on and all in that line. So how are you doing today? Oh, now you sound like Mickey Mouse. He sounds like Mickey Mouse. He's got to go back out at the end because he's doing the whole Mickey Mouse thing and everything like that. So we'll have him go back out and in, and then he'll come back and we'll find out what he's got on his mind when he comes back and all in that space. But yeah, he had a little Mickey Mouse thing happening, and that's not a good thing. So we'll bring Nick back in, and hopefully he doesn't have the Mickey Mouse thing going on. There you go, Nick. No, let's see if you got the Mickey Mouse thing going on
Okay,
and everything like that.
Mickey Mouse
So
leaving?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So how are you doing today? How are things going? And looks like you don't have the Mickey Mouse thing going on, but I know a lot of people were talking about the Super Bowl and the Bad Bunny performance, and sounds like he was making a statement about Latin pride and all in that space. And I've been watching Facebook. Some people did like it, and then of course Kid Rock was doing his Turning Point alternative halftime show. So there's been all kinds of conversations about that on both of the performances on Facebook and everything like that. So I think that you said that you couldn't watch the Super Bowl because by the time the Super Bowl was on, you were in bed because it was bedtime and everything like that. Because I know the Super Bowl was on last night. The kickoff was around 6:40 or something like that, and that was probably what, like midnight for you or something like that. So I'm thinking you might have been asleep and missing all the Super Bowl hype.
It's a problem over here to watch the Super Bowl, Mark, because first of all, the hours it gets on at about a little after midnight, and the other problem is they don't broadcast it here. Okay, so Spain and Europe, they just really don't care about the Super Bowl. I hate to say,
No,
well,
but they
it's
do care
America.
about the Olympics, and I know that one of the sad
Well,
things
they
about
do
the
care
Olympics,
about the
and I
Olympics.
watch
The
it,
Olympics is on
was
a lot of our channels, but Super Bowl, no mas. So the thing is,
no monsters, not even though it was in Spanish, because it was the halftime show, because it was pretty much, I'd say 90% in Spanish that he was singing. I think Lady Gaga did an American song, and there were others that did it as well. And then they had a person from the LGBT community that sang one of the songs. I think that was Brandy Carlisle, and then they had
yeah,
Charles Pugh, and they had some other people that they brought on, or Charlie Pugh that they brought on as well. So definitely, Rock Nation, which I think is Jay Z's company, was seeing
okay.
what they could see to
And
bring out some interesting music. And of course, there was the always the flyover, which is
okay.
fun.
Europe doesn't care about American football. Okay, period. The end.
Europe
In
doesn't
the
care
words,
about that. They're
and the
more
NFL has
into their own
tried. They've
football,
tried
their
to
own
export.
stuff.
No, they've tried to export that product for years. They had a European Football League. They had a World Football League. They kept sending, and the Europeans reject it. They just don't like the whole American football thing. So it doesn't appear on any of the channels here. When they do produce a game, it's only the expats who go. In other words, there's 5.5 million people that live out and retire outside the United States, and they had a game in Madrid, and they go at very reduced prices. So the Super Bowl and American football are like, it's hard to explain. It's like chess in the United States. Okay. Americans don't care about chess. They really don't. It's big in Europe. It's big in
Hey
Russia.
Nick, I have an idea.
but
I
it's
have
not big in the
an
United
idea for the
States.
network. I was actually going to bring it up
Super
on
Bowl.
the media show, but I want to hear what you think about this because when I was watching the Super Bowl, one of our competitor networks, because there are all kinds of cable networks out there, but this is one of the bigger competitors, and everything is doing a they're going to bring a sport to their network. They're going to bring a cheerleading competition to their network and everything like that. So they're going to have a cheer competition. I think it's Ion, and they're going to start it in either March or April or sometime soon. But they announced it on the Super Bowl and everything like that. I was thinking maybe we should get together with like some world drill teams or some world drum majorettes, and we could be Pod TV have its own league, and it could be something that is not have a professional league. I know chess has a professional league. Otherwise, I would say chess because I know you and Sasha are into chess. But I was thinking maybe we can find a sport that doesn't have a home, and we can be its home. So the first things that came to my mind were drill teams and majorettes, since they're doing cheerleaders.
Yeah, I think we could do that, but also I think we could have an alternative halftime show. I'm not sure what we would bring to the table, but we certainly could bring musicians from all over the world on our alternative halftime show and just nick a little bit out of the NFL. Like in Europe, like I said, they don't even follow the Super Bowl, and where it's like it's zero here. I mean, it's not even on anybody's radar screen. There's no Super Bowl parties. There's no Super Bowl anything. There's no Super Bowl dinners. There's no Super Bowl anything at all. I did happen to watch.
We've got Rick here, so we're going to bring Rick in and see what Rick's got to say about all of this. So, Rick, we're talking about the Super Bowl. I was just mentioning Bad Bunny. I've been watching Facebook. Some people are upset. Some people are not upset and everything like that. But I was also saying that I saw that there was a cheerleading squad that is going to start their own. Well, several cheerleading squads are starting their own cheer league. It's going to be on one of our competitor networks called Ion and everything. So I was asking Nick if we could start. Maybe we could start a quiz bowl, like what you're into, like a Jeopardy type thing that could be on our network. Because I was just thinking of things that we could do to generate interest that could for this network that could be our own league, since they apparently are doing a cheerleading league.
Quiz is a little bit production heavy because you got to come up with a bunch of questions.
Yeah, it is a big production. But yeah, we could do, Marcus, that we did have singers from all over the world. Remember, we had the people in South America, we had people in India, we had people everywhere. We could bring them in on like a halftime show if you wanted to do that. I did happen to see.
You're talking about Super Bowl counter programming?
Yeah, in other words, because the thing is,
that's what he's talking about. I was just talking about counter programming in general.
What? We can do our own halftime.
I said I was just talking about counter programming in general, but yeah, he was talking about Super Bowl counter programming.
Wants to sponsor it and do it. It's a lot of work. Even if you did you have to find somebody who's willing to put the programming together.
Also,
it's a lot of work.
People
I didn't see Bad Bunny. I don't see what the big uproar is. By the way, when I lived in Miami, you can watch those shows every day. I mean, it's just the way it is.
So
here they have flamenco, but they don't have that many Latin American shows. It's not big in Latin American shows here. And so I didn't see it to be a big deal one way or the other. But
let's talk numbers. Let's talk. So about 135 million people watched the Super Bowl, particularly the halftime show. I watched it. It was fine. It was, the production values were crazy with him dropping through a roof into an entire different set.
Yeah, I thought that dropping the roof was cool. I thought it was cool. He got on he got on a truck. He spoke only in Spanish, but if you live in Miami, I went to University of Miami Law School, and I can tell you that a lot of the programming is, mundo, telemundo, all the time. So this was no different than picking up a program in Miami. And the real problem is it's not American programming. And to give you an idea, I thought, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well have Hungarian Rhapsody in there.
It is. I mean, there are 45
I like Turkish music. So, cool, but you never see it in the U.S.
Almost everybody in the U.S. speaks English, but there are 45 to 65 million Spanish speakers in the U.S.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't need to speak Spanish to be entertained by it. And so
there's a lot of people who speak Spanish in Spain. Okay, I can tell you that. I live here, and I habla español, and I'm going through all this stuff, and I realize I'm kind of a beginner. Huitolco. But the thing is, if you say, is that an American thing? No. Okay, but why did they do it? Here's the reason why. The NFL has failed miserably in Europe. They keep trying, they keep failing. And so what happens is they're looking to put a franchise together in Mexico City. So their beta testing, is there an appeal for this in possibly Central America and Latin America, where they can expand, because Europe has continually rejected your football. They don't like it. And part of the reason why you love this, I think it's too violent. The people hit each other really hard and they don't like that. Even though they
wait a minute. Hold on a second, Nick. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. They say it's too violent.
They have no appetite for American football. They
wait
do
a minute.
American basketball. But
hold on a second, Nick. Hold on a second. You say that they say it's too violent. Have you ever watched a rugby match?
Yeah, I know. It's just the way it is, Mark. I mean, you can say it's inconsistent, but I can tell you the Europeans do not like American football. They hate it. And your American football, you had 135 million. I can tell you over here, there's 450 million people. You'd be lucky to have 5 million watch the Super Bowl. Lucky. And those are all expats. So who watches the Super Bowl?
Let's talk about what actually happened, which was Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk's old outfit ran an alternate Super Bowl for people who decided to be offended by the Spanish language Super Bowl halftime show. So the Super Bowl got 135 million viewers. TP USA got anywhere, I haven't seen any kind of final numbers. It's streamed various places. Got between 5 and 15 million. So
yeah, they didn't do well at all. Turning Point didn't do well.
Also, the star of that was Kid Rock, a 55-year-old guy who hasn't had a record album in the Billboard Top 200 since 2017. Also, they were there's more. They were saying this is a more Christian show, and then everybody said, yeah, Kid Rock talks about banging underage girls. He's not super Christian. The whole thing was, people getting upset or trying.
It's a response that they don't like Latin America. Period. The end.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to analyze this to death. I mean, here's really simple. Europeans do not like American football, and Americans generally do not like Latin Americans speaking Spanish to them. Period. The end. It's as simple as that. So why did the NFL do it? They're looking to expand in Latin America because they're getting hammered by the Europeans. Europeans don't care about you guys.
20 billion.
They don't care about your halftime. They don't care about your culture. They wish you guys just stay over on that side of the pond.
Wait, I got two more things. Let me get two more things in here. Bad Bunny was the most. Hold on. Bad Bunny was the most streamed musical artist last year with 20 billion streams, beating Taylor Swift and everybody else. That's thing one. Thing two is Kid Rock lip synced. Hold on, Kid Rock lip synced last night. So their show, and it had bad production value, bad sound. It was a crappy production.
I didn't even bother to see Turning Point. I saw Bad Bunny because I wanted to see what the hoopla was about. I didn't see it. I thought it was actually a pretty good production because it takes a lot to put stuff like that on. Putting that set together was amazing. They had to have some Apple money or something behind it.
Bad Bunny's used to doing productions. Kid Rock hasn't done a performance worth.
I don't know if I'm going to bother watch Kid Rock.
I'm not going to. I was scrolling and somebody had posted it, and it sounded like somebody screaming through a screech board or something. Yeah. It was.
But notice all the talk is about the halftime show. What about the game? Seattle played.
Right. The game was pretty good, but I will say this:
it wasn't boring.
But you know what?
Good or boring?
Turning Point to me, they have the initials TP USA, and TP is toilet paper, or trash people, or the pedophile USA. And Kid Rock has that song that's about pedophiles, and I just want to say something. And I'm taking this from someone else, but everyone trash talks Puerto Rico, and you know what? Their president is a pedophile, right? Puerto Rico's president.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the Puerto Rico's president.
Their president is Trump.
Is the
what-
U.S.
Yeah.
president.
All right. I get you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Boy, deer in headlight, come to life, people.
hey, look,
It is
there was a
very
good
early.
30-minute commercial for Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico needs help.
But it
So
also made
that's
fun
what
of but it
I
made
love Puerto
fun of-
Rico.
maybe they'll have a
Well,
football.
hold on,
fan.
wait. It also made fun of Puerto Rico. He had people climbing power lines, which was in reference to Puerto Rico lost its electricity in the massive hurricane during Trump's first administration. So
Well, the real question about Puerto Rico we haven't looked at, Rick. How's their economy doing? Let's talk about the real thing.
It's
about
really
Puerto
bad.
Rico.
No, the thing is,
I know there's great tax benefits for moving there, so a lot of wealthy people jumped over there because of their tax code is very.
Yeah,
Well, the
hold on a
Virgin
second.
Island
How's their
has
economy?
tax benefits of 90% if you donate money to some of their charities.
Yeah, but how's their economy in general? Is their economy
So the
doing
economy's
well?
not
How's their
good. And
GDP?
Puerto Rico's
I don't know much about it. I've flown in before.
Right.
And I've flown in, flown out, and that was about it.
well,
on
you
the
got
way
to
to-
visit.
I
need
want
to
to hear
visit
from
the
I want to
villages
hear from
before
Jacoby
night.
in
Yeah,
a
let's hear from
second.
you, Toby.
Wait.
So-
When you talking about the game, this was the first Super Bowl in history where for the first 3 quarters of the game, one guy scored all the points in the entire
I
game.
know.
The field goal kicker. The field goal kicker. It was
What
also
about the game?
almost the first game that had a whole half with no penalties, but they did have a penalty at the end of the game.
What about
I
the
mean,
game?
At the end of the half.
it was the first game in 51 years where there was where one team was held scoreless for the first 3 quarters. It actually was a defensive battle, and truthfully, it did expose the struggles that New England truly had, because it's going to reiterate the issue that New England got to the championship by sheer luck of the
Right.
draw, because the individuals that they played Houston. CJ Stroud ended up with roughly about 5 turnovers in the whole game, had one of the worst quarterback play since football was invented. Then you had Bo Nix, who was injured for Denver, and Bo Nix, had Bo Nix played again, Denver could have easily won that game, because New England only scored 10 points, but they scored 7 of those points on a fluke turnover, which actually could have been overruled, and New England would have only scored 3 points, and then the score would have been 7-3, and New England would have lost. In the Houston game, again, had any semblance of play from the quarterback happened, then Houston actually would have won that game. So it's just going to reiterate the point that New England got there. Yes, their schedule was one of the weaker schedules going through the NFL. Next year, they have a tough schedule to play. So we'll see if they make it back, because typically, historically speaking, the loser of the Super Bowl usually never doesn't make it back to the playoffs the next year. It's happened a couple of times recently, but usually doesn't make it back to the playoffs. Usually has a very strong.
Well, and a lot of people, they
Overall-
briefed on it, but this was a
game.
rematch since 2015.
It wasn't really. It was a rematch in name only. None of the players,
not players, not players.
Yeah, none of the players were there, and so
Title
Seattle
only.
got their revenge based off of that poor turnover by Russell Wilson. The interesting thing is Russell Wilson. They traded Russell Wilson and got a lot of players, and a lot of players that they received in that trade helped the actual win. So I mean, it was a dominant defensive game where Seattle just outplayed them. But again, New England didn't have any offensive answers. That's why I was stressing that, hey, whoever won the Seattle and Rams game, that was going to be your Super Bowl winner. Whoever's coming out of the NFC was going to be your Super Bowl winner, based on just because of the way New England had played.
Have a good Super Bowl. You want it to go back and forth. You want a bunch of lead changes. Seattle scored 5 times before New England scored once.
Well,
and
it wasn't
that
even that.
score wasn't until deep into the 4th quarter.
No,
So-
it wasn't even that. It wasn't even. I mean, you've had some defensive play, some great defensive battles in the Super Bowl. But the problem with this defensive battle is it felt like New England just didn't have a shot. And that was the problem because you had, the games where Baltimore. Honestly, the Baltimore-San Francisco game was actually a good battle for a little while. I mean, it just, in a defensive game, what you want is that you believe that the other team has a shot. Yeah. The game got good when it was 19-7. Why? Because you felt that, hey, maybe New England now has a shot, because maybe they're going to turn something on. Because if you watch every Chicago Bears game this year, Chicago was the cardiac Bears. They scored in the final. They basically scored in the final seconds and would win. You had I'm trying to remember who won the one-score games this year. It wasn't Pittsburgh. There were a few teams that ended up with one-score battles the whole year. Philadelphia had some great games, but it was just that in this game, you felt after Seattle scored 6, you felt the game was over because you saw the way that the game was playing.
Yeah, you saw the direction of the game. Just really quickly, because I want to get
real quick before we get off the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Nick made a point earlier about and asked the question of why the Super Bowl chose Bad Bunny, and he made a great point, and he is right on that point. The point being, the NFL wants to expand and wants to be a global sport. Hence the reason why the NFL has been putting games in soccer stadiums in Europe. And yes, the Europeans do actually care some for the game now because they placed the game there and sold out the stadiums there. So they're trying to be a global sport. They cannot follow what Trump is doing because that isolates them. So what they're doing is they're expanding, utilizing the halftime show. They're using the halftime show as outreach and to say, hey, look, we're welcoming to every culture. We're open to, hey, allow you to be a part of this. That's what that whole halftime show was, hey, let's all love, let's all be a part of this, let's all joyous, because you can't expand anymore. It's a 20 some odd $1 billion industry. And if they want to grow, they have to get outside of the US. And that's what the halftime show is now. Kendrick Lamar's was that. It was an expression of the black community and the black culture. It was, hey, we're welcoming of this. Even before that,
the Beyonce Bowl.
Usher, one of the top stars in the R&B community, and that's actually something that travels globally. Rihanna is a global superstar. Bad Bunny's the #1 global superstar. Next year, I guarantee it's going to be another global superstar. And yes, if you're so ethnocentric or so, hey, it's all American, it should be this or whatever, you're going to be pissed off next year because it's another global superstar coming that's going to be a part of it. And watch, it'll be.
I love the fact that Bad Bunny shared a stage. You know, he had 2 big superhero type people, people that are known and loved from around the world as well. And this, I think, also was a means to help expose Bad Bunny's career. You know, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. He is, known by many, but not by all. And now he's known almost by all. So I think it was to also help him launch his career as well. I actually liked him. I was very uncertain, but I danced. I love that music. I love that kind of music anyway. And I danced through the whole Super Bowl. While he was playing, I got a lot of exercise, burned off a lot of calories. I've never done that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was family style entertainment.
They put shorts on.
Very clean.
Put shorts on his dancers. Now, normally they'd be shaking booty, and
they did.
They did some, but not a lot. It was very clean.
What they really did was they showed Latin culture and said this is a celebration of this. It
was a culture education.
It was, hey, people I was afraid that people were not going to understand that this is Latin dancing. This is what it was. This is how it is. But it's the same thing with some of the things that have happened in the past. It's a quick response to, hey, but no, I'm glad people enjoy
the sugar cane fields, the everything.
They also have.
I thought it was beautiful. I reflect on it. I have family there. I'm going there this week. I mean, it's beautiful. But Mark and I, the first thing I noticed was the number 64 on his jacket. And that became the question all around the world. I was like, what does 64 mean? Does anyone know?
I don't have a clue.
Mark and I did our homework last night. We did our homework.
Squares on a chessboard. 64.
Oh, that's right. It's the number of squares on the chessboard. Right.
There you go. Thank you, Sasha. So,
Maybe he's
people don't realize.
By the way, I was watching yesterday Super Bowl.
That's right. It's the number of
performance of the
I'm wearing my Canada shirt.
I enjoyed Bad Bunny. However, in all objectivity, I must say that it's a poor man's Ricky Martin. That's all what it is.
Yeah, but they
I
have
would love to
the
see
rich.
Michael Bublé up there from Canada.
Wait, yeah, but if you wanted the rich man's Ricky Martin, he was there. He was part of the halftime.
They brought him in.
Lady Gaga. I mean, come on, man. She put on a.
Just really quickly, because I did want to get to some news. I have
Next year they're going to have
Sasha and everything
Hungarian
like that. But I did have just two quick sports things that I was curious about, and then we can get to some actual news around the world and everything. But Jatopi, speaking of people and how sports can go, and it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter until the final score. And the UNC Duke game was an example of that, because UNC was losing the entire game until the end when they shot that last second shot, because they had been losing the entire game and everything. But it doesn't matter until you get that final score. So that was a great comeback. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about that. And on the sad note, I was really rooting for Lindsey Vonn, and I really did not want to see her crash. But that was a sad crash, because I did watch the crash. And I don't know if Sasha watched it, because I know he follows the Olympics. But
I didn't see the crash. I know she crashed prior. I didn't see the recent crash.
That was on European news all the time. The Lindsey Vonn crash. Because the Olympics are
I got my Canada shirt on. Go Canada! So,
but it's in Milano, Italiano. Hey, speaking of,
did you watch the Italian skater last night? Pretty phenomenal performance.
The speed skater?
No, the ice dancers. So
the speed skaters were unreal.
Speed skating.
I was watching speed skating.
I want to tell you what, if you learn how to ice skate, you will live a long, wonderful life, because it develops your whole core. It's like swimming. You develop good pulmonary, just everything, pulmonary health. You breathe. You're in the cold all the time, so your joints aren't as swollen. But ice skating, figure skating, but I would go to Minnesota and work a lot, and I would carry my skates with me. I've had my skates since 7th grade and have kept them in great condition. And I would ice skate a lot. And there were a lot of people in their 80s speed skating. That was their thing, just skate around. They weren't dancing can become dangerous because you can fall, right, and break a bone. But they definitely speed skate a lot up there. That's their thing. So, yeah, I love it. But there's some beautiful performances last night on the ice, not just the speed skating, some talent that I haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah, that gentleman from Virginia that was the figure skater, those leaps that he does is amazing and everything like that. So he did help the U.S. get their gold and everything like that. I haven't seen how the sister did in speed skating yet. So I think she's supposed to compete at 11 today, if I remember correctly. But getting back to world stuff, and Sasha, what's going to go on now that we got another conservative in the world? She's already been in the world in terms of elections, but the Japanese prime minister looks like she secured a major win and rescued her party from the abyss, they're saying, and everything like that. So now they're saying she's going to pursue a conservative agenda after the election landslide. And we've seen that in other countries as well. So we're going to see more people going the conservative. Answer that, but here's Sasha's thoughts.
Okay, since we don't have today Economic Monday, well, we have, but it will be about immigration. It's a completely different issue. So that Japan, their stock market is booming. It's beating all records, and they are no longer buying U.S. treasuries. And Japan came up with the novel idea just last night. They forbid Chinese banks and financial institutions to buy U.S. treasuries. So the attack on U.S. and it reflects in U.S. dollar, which is going down again, and of course gold and silver are going in opposite direction, which is all quite obvious. So this is all indication of around the world. People are losing trust in U.S., especially under direction of Donald Trump, convicted criminal and loser, and
Pedophile is a pedophile.
so many bankruptcies and rapists, and just when people put somebody like that on top of the country, what can you think about the country? It doesn't matter if the Republicans or voted for him, MAGA, the others were against him. It doesn't matter. The result, he was elected. So that's what the country is really.
Trump has screwed the jobs market. The preliminary January jobs number, 22,000 jobs added, 1/10 of the average baseline number of every since 2011. The U.S. has added about at least 2.2 million jobs per year, except for Trump's COVID year of 2020. So this number is about 1/10 of that. Trump has basically added no jobs since he instituted tariffs last April.
Right. And
even these numbers you cannot trust because all these numbers are manipulated, and even the recent numbers that the GDP is growing 4.3%, it's the greatest economy or so on. The 4.3% is completely misguided and manipulated number because most of it is in activities of AI, that one company invests $100 billion to another company buying their shares, and then that company in turn will buy the products of that company, and when that deal is not going ahead, and the CEO was asked, how come you didn't close the deal? He said it was letter of intent. So letter of intent is that Trump bringing from overseas $17 trillion to be invested in American economy, created workplaces and jobs and everything else. Where? What 17 trillions? Out of 17 trillions in a year since it was announced already, where is at least $500 billion or 1/10 of trillion? Nothing, zero. But that idiot is doing much more than that. He is now, what he's doing now, using this so-called peace negotiations. There will be a peace. No, there will be carving of Russian budget, Russian mineral resources and everything would have in a stupidest deal that you ever heard of, that so-called the chief negotiator for Russia is Dmitriev. That Dmitriev, piece of shit, he is husband of a closest girlfriend of Trump's daughter. So Trump's Putin's daughter. However, you know what? They're not too much fun. You can take it. What's interesting is that Putin promised, come on, stop the noise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo. Okay, so what's happening right now? Dmitriev explained to Trump and his Vitkov and all these idiots representing him he explained that Russia is creating with United States a super fund of $12 trillion. Remember the figure 12 trillions. You know what is Russian GDP? It's less than $2 trillion a year. And Trump is now, for this participation in that fund, he has to deliver to Putin a complete capitulation of Ukraine. Finally, when Zelensky learned about it, he said, no more, I don't want to hear about Trump anymore. Let him go to hell. It's enough is enough. There will be no capitulation of Ukraine of any kind, and there will be no longer participation in so-called peace negotiations. Finita la commedia.
Sounds
Right.
good and everything like that. Hey, just
I mean,
really quickly.
you know, it would be nice to say we don't speak his name anymore, but we, you know, unfortunately, we're not there yet. But you know, the ongoing with the investigations of his pedophile activities in the Epstein files, it has now become a worldwide investigation, which I'm happy about, because pedophile is a global crime. Like, if you're caught being or found guilty being a pedophile or committing the illicit activities of sex trafficking children and pedophile, that is a global crime. And so if they find Trump guilty of any of this, they can arrest him, from what I understand. So now this is becoming bigger and bigger globally, and they are getting records that are not redacted. So I am thrilled to say that maybe globally, where they actually strip people of their titles from being a pedophile, or just be, you know, they strip people, you know, we give them titles. Maybe they'll hold not just Trump accountable. I'm not after just Trump. Everyone in those files need to be held accountable, that anyone that was participating in the illicit crimes. And they are identified. You can read through the cases and know who was being accused, know what evidence was against them. And then, you know, you can see those who were just name drops. And you can see, and there were a lot of name drops, but the name drops were not accused by the victims, but the victims will clearly say, no, that person didn't participate. They were just visiting, or just somebody that Epstein was talking to on the phone. So it's very clear in the cases. You have to read the cases to see. So don't just sit there and think because there's a list handed to you with names on them. When I did my names, I put beside them what was happening with them in the cases that were being studied. So I have probably over 2,000 names right now that we've pulled together from the case files. And so there's a lot of names. You just can't, because Epstein was known to donate money to real charities, not just transact money through the charities in his business model, which setting up nonprofits and charities was what they would do for his business model. So if you were an affiliate, a member of the Pedophile Country Club that he built, odds are you had a charity or a nonprofit that he processed the funds through. So, but I'm not talking, I'm just saying, I am happy that internationally they are investigating this, and maybe something will happen to all of those who are accused.
Apparently they're investigating locally too, because they just said earlier today that Congress members are viewing unredacted Epstein files at the Department of Justice. And I know we've got our special tomorrow at 4:00 and everything like that. So we'll be having a special. And it did, to your point, a recent victim in terms of having to resign because of her affiliation with Epstein was the Norwegian ambassador. So the Norwegian ambassador resigns as she faces scrutiny of her contact with Epstein as well. So yeah, it's definitely impacting a lot of people in that sense. Just really quick.
It impacts, before we leave off of this.
Yes.
The tough thing is, and we don't know what unredacted files they're going to see.
Right.
So we don't really. It's supposedly there are 3 million files that aren't that were given were were all redacted. Even more, there were more given before then that were all redacted, that you really couldn't read anything. It looked just like a page with just black marker all over it, so you couldn't read any words. So we don't know what they're going to see with the with whatever they see. But then what Kim was talking about overseas and them opening files there, even the sad part is, even if he were found guilty in an international court of law, that means that he would not be able to travel or he would be arrested, which means this man would not leave Mar-a-Lago, and that's where he would sit. He would not really face any crimes or anything. He probably wouldn't get stripped of his titles here. He would be like Putin. Putin is guilty of crimes, war crimes, everything, and he is a criminal according to international law. He traveled to the U.S., was not arrested. Why? Because he traveled to the U.S. when Trump was president. He's not traveling anywhere else where he can be arrested.
Well, that might be questionable. That might be debatable, because when you commit an international crime, I would like to ask Nick this question, but supposedly they can come and arrest you or ask your government to turn you over. That happens. Right. So if enough countries believe that Trump is really guilty, or anyone else, there are names in that file that will blow you away. They're literally the names that I have been able to pull. It shocked me, but they should be able internationally, because the crimes were committed against girls from around the world, not just girls in the U.S. These were girls that were trafficked from around the world. So they should be able to internationally.
I'm right there with you. They should be. His crimes, all this stuff against the women, they deserve justice. Trump bombed people, killed people off the coast of Venezuela.
Continues. He did it a couple days ago.
But they're not doing anything to him.
Exactly. So how are we expecting anything to change in terms of our government turning him over to any international court?
Well, because mafia.
Trump will be 80 years old in 4 months. Even if he were found guilty of something that would result in prison, which he won't be, he will pretend to be too old and sick to be put in prison. Trump is never
too senile to be tried.
Yeah,
maybe that will be his.
Well, and it's not even that. We have to look at the realities of the situation. The bully on the block is who? And I hate to say it this way, the bully on the block is who? The U.S.
Yeah.
What community or what government is going to really go into the U.S. and grab the president of the United States?
They're not going to. They're going to ask.
So that's where we're sitting at. And that's where, looking at the realities of the situation, he should have been arrested for killing people off the coast of Venezuela. He went into Venezuela and kidnapped a sitting president. Yes, we can argue. Nobody is defending Maduro, but we're talking about the action of the situation.
Right.
So he went in and did that. He's talking about doing the same thing in Iran. So all these things, the bully on the block is still the U.S., and I hate to put it that way. Until, in that international court, he's going to be found guilty. Trump, my thing is, I think Trump was a partner in the situation more so than just a visitor in the situation.
I think it could continue on for years. I think even though he said he disassociated with him, that culture group has a tendency of separating and then reuniting. They just can't help themselves. But what I wanted to bring up is why this? Well, the mafia, they never could arrest a lot of the mafia people for murders and crimes that were just horrendous, but they did get them with the IRS, right? And everyone goes, well, that they're not being served justice for the crimes that they actually did, but they used the IRS. So maybe, just maybe, they can use the pedophile crimes to actually arrest him with, because those are horrendous crimes, but not as horrendous as what he's doing to the globe right now. But it's very bad. Raping a little girl is very bad. Even pedophiles hate pedophiles.
There's no argument with that. But the problem is where we sit viewed as globally, but even more so, what's going to happen? I mean, what's going to happen is they're going to blame the international courts. They're going to attack the international courts. They're going to do everything they can, MAGA-wise, to protect Trump. That's where it is right now. And he's going to use every force of every lever of the government, because the Republican Party has bent the knee and they'll do everything he says. Mike Johnson doesn't care about anything but whatever Trump wants.
Yeah, that's because Mike Johnson is part of the pedophiles. He's part of it.
Back to the Olympics for 1 second. They often, during press conferences, some of the athletes are asked political questions, or they make political statements about not loving some of the stuff going on in the United States. And then all the MAGAs say, send them home, kick them off the team. But when you looked at these same people, they took the gold, the figure skaters, some of the same people who weren't who deplored some of the actions in the United States. They all had their hands on their hearts, and most of them were crying. They all love the United States, and it's not unpatriotic to have criticism. The United States is a perfectible country. That's our deal. We make mistakes, and then we try to make fewer mistakes in the future. That's that it's built into our constitution, our political system. So
the ability to criticize the country is one of the most patriotic things. That's that protest.
Yeah, that's
MAGAs have a tendency of complaining about their jobs all the time and hating it. And so they were making comments. I know some of them. And they were making some pretty lewd comments about the Olympians who were there from America, saying things. And I'm like, it's embarrassing for me to go to global meetings and meet some of the leaders. And, it's hard to keep my head high and my tongue curved, because that's what I'm supposed to do. But when they are talking bad about them, and you go, yeah, that's absolutely true. It's a full embarrassment. But it's like I told a MAGA the other day, well, as much as I heard you talk crap about your boss, maybe you should quit your job. So, people work hard to get there. They shouldn't be asked to step down. But the thing is it's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. But who's a pedophile. It's
another problem as well. And I'd love to hear y'all talk to me. We only got a few more minutes on this and everything. But even the tariff situation is creating a problem, because I was reading an article about a gentleman that actually won one of those business contests. I think he was one of the Shark Tanks and everything like that. He actually is here in North Carolina. Jatovia and Kim, but he's now talking about the fares that he has to pay and how people are approaching him about these fares because of the tariffs. So because of the tariffs, this gentleman just got like a barbershop product and everything, is having people trying to get him $350,000 or $768,000 or up to $900,000, and they're claiming approval in an hour because of these fees that are out there, because people are not realizing that there are a lot of fees that the American businesses are having when they used to get imports for their supplies from places like China, France, or Vietnam, which are part of the tariff. So it's impacting folks more than they think it's impacting. And this was an article that I was reading. So I don't know y'all's thoughts around this, because apparently some of the scam artists are now realizing these people have to pay money. So they're going after them to try to con them into getting that money and everything like that. So I don't know what y'all's thoughts are around that, because the tariffs are impacting our local businesses too.
I mean, we knew that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the fight against the tariffs was. But of course, FAFO.
Yeah, I mean, and it was a big impact last year, the world's leaders meeting at CERAWeek. Everyone was, that's when the chaos began. And So yeah, I mean, it hit. There was no consciousness of what the consequences were going to be. No critical analytic thinking whatsoever by any of our administration. It was just all knee jerk, bully, throw a punch. There was no thinking about the full consequences. And now you have farmers who are fully going under and saying they regret their vote. Well, you can't take that back. What you can do is go with your pitchfork to DC and sound your voice, which I have seen farmers, sound their voices with pitchforks. It's not a pretty sight. But I think that people, all these protests are not helping us anymore, other than just uniting. But what I think needs to happen now is I think the people need to take their voice where it needs to make the change, and that as many as you can go to DC, and on the same day, all of those other people who couldn't make it to DC go to their capital, go to their city hall. But we need everyone on the same day standing in front of a government office saying no more. We want to change. And that's what it's going to take. All of these protests aren't helping anymore. So
there is a big problem.
No, I disagree. I think the protests are helping.
Just a sec. A big problem for Republican Party is that, look, Trump is old man. He is at his last term as a president. So he can do now to advance his agenda. He has roughly 3 years left. So he will start dabbling down. He already does that on all these points without any regard for Republican Party and its representatives. And they understand that because to him, they are nothing. It's not even a garbage. It's much less than a garbage. All these representatives in the Congress, in the Senate, and House, and so on, it's for him garbage. It doesn't exist. And they now understand they have to fight for themselves. There is nothing that will help them at all because he will betray everything and everybody.
And I think that's where the protests come into play, and that's why the protests matter. They show how tone deaf. They show how tone deaf that Trump is, because everything Sasha said is right. Is that yes, Trump doesn't care. All he hears is noise. But what the people who are and don't get me wrong, I'm not just saying protest without a movement and a policy behind it and what needs to be changed, then that protest becomes noise. And that's what Trump is hearing, is he's just hearing noise. There is a policy, there are changes, and this is where the Democrats can actually take advantage of it, is listening to what those policies and changes need to be happening. Because those protests in Minneapolis about ICE and people getting, when they're yelling defund ICE, what they're talking, people are jumping on board and being fearful of the name, but they're not thinking about what they're saying. Mm-hmm. The defund ICE isn't, hey, we don't need immigration enforcement. The defund ICE is actually talking about, let's reorganize the actual group that has a name that really strikes fear in people and people hate. So let's actually take that name away. Let's actually fund the actual same thing, just like they're talking about in education. Take the same policy, move it to where it's supposed to be, and actually fund comprehensive immigration reform. That's what defund the police, defund ICE is. That's what defund. If people did not listen to it, they just got into the noise part of it. So
a lot of times people are just listening to the noise and everything
so
like
these
that.
protests being able to galvanize the actual people behind it and scares the living daylights out of the people that are running. Trump isn't running anymore. He doesn't care. The people that want that actual power, that's why these Republicans have left in droves in this time, and that's why the Senate and the House can be the Democrats. They're up for grab right now. There was actually an election that just happened that a Democrat won, and it flipped a seat where Trump won the area, won it by 13 points, and they just flipped it. There was a Democrat that just won. And I'm not talking about the one that would just happen earlier this year or the one last year.
I think it's the one that was in Texas that was like
they want to hold him accountable. And these protests are saying, we want this change. And that's where that populism, and that's where that protest comes into play to say, hey, look, if you're not listening and you're just hearing noise, and if these people are just going to follow you blindly, I hate them. That's what that protest is.
That's what a lot of that is.
No, and I agree with that, but we need to move forward. Something needs to start happening. And the policies are good, but you can only, we need to push harder to get a lot of this done. And I know the Democratic way is to do it in a calm, way, which the Republican way is to go and, destroy and burn down. But, we just need to step up and say, okay, you need to go.
And that's what's happening.
I think more people are doing that.
That's why that the last Rick, I don't know if you can look it up really fast on who was the
Johnson.
I think it was either last week or the week prior. There was an election that flipped.
Special election. I don't have that, but I can tell you right now that the breakdown right now is 218 Republicans, 214 Democrats, 3 vacant seats. I don't know if they'll be filled or not, but if things get bad enough for the Republicans, the 2 of them flip to be Democrats, which doesn't happen very often. Republicans could lose control of the House, and Mike Johnson could lose his freaking job. It probably won't happen, but they will. They'll almost certainly lose control of the House at the midterms in 9 months.
And what's crazy though is he needs all 218. So if those seats stay vacant,
it was
they flip.
Yeah, hold on a second, Jacoby. It says the first special election of 2026, 2 Democratic candidates won lopsided victories in 2 special elections in Minnesota. So it was in Minnesota was one of them. And then the second came soon after, where I was talking about in Texas, where Republicans invested a considerable amount of resources to keep a state Senate seat in the suburbs of Fort Worth. They failed. So a Democrat, Taylor Remet, a union leader and an Air Force veteran, won a double-digit victory in that area that had been won by Trump by 17 points. So that was in Texas and everything like that. So definitely those are the ones that I think you were referring to that were earlier this year.
So yeah, I mean, it's just happening. And so now that wave is there. And I think these protests keep that energy there. And I think that keeps galvanizing the people. And I think that in the political realm, Sasha, again, you're right with Trump doesn't care. He's not listening at all. And so if he keeps going the way he does, that means more protests and galvanizing more people behind that protest, because people are starting to understand what this movement is.
Oh, wow. It looks like there was a protest in Italy at the Olympics. So it says Italian police fired tear gas as protesters clashed near the Winter Olympics hockey venue. So it looks like there's some people protesting some of the world politics and everything like that. So there was, then that just happened earlier today and everything like that. So there was an attempt to disperse a protest and everything like that. We didn't get to them, but the other things that I was going to get to, and we can get to them on tomorrow and some of the other shows, is apparently Dr. Oz is trying to talk about a measles outbreak and the need to try to protect ourselves from that measles outbreak and everything like that. So that's the other story that I was going to try to get to. So hopefully we can get to that on other shows later or on some other shows in the next couple of days and everything like that. And also how people are getting conned by some of these lending types and everything like that, which is where I was going with that other story and everything like that. But on that note, we're going to get out of here. I think economics is already going on. And then we've also got Media Monday as well, and timeshares. So we'll have some other shows coming our way as well. But right now, let's get on out of here. The computer wants to work. Might have to do it the other way.